Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at EX3, and EX3 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to be able to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be a brand new iteration of Machinedramon. So Machinedramon has been a deck that's been around since EX1, and he's been slowly getting support in every subsequent set, with EX3 being no different, to accumulate it and make him more powerful than he's been before. So the deck's main gameplay style is just trying to get your Machinedramon out and shove a whole bunch of different level 5 red or black cyborgs underneath him to try to make your Machinedramon as powerful and annoying for the opponent to deal with as best as we possibly can, and the brand new Chaosdramon from this set helps facilitate that same type of gameplay a little bit better than the old one. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Pagumon as the only Digitama in the deck. We are going to be trying to do a little bit of traditional evolution to be able to build all the way up into our level 5 and then either sit on our level 5 or go into our Chaosdramon. So Pagumon, still being one of the best generic black Digitamas that we have to work with, makes it just a really easy choice just because it helps with the overall consistency of the deck when our Digimon eventually get deleted. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Chuumon. So Chuumon is in the deck just because Black's rookie quality isn't necessarily the best, and we do have some really good anti-meta floodgates that we could run, Chuumon being one of them, stopping the opponent from being able to gain memory on anything but their tamers, really forcing them to try to deal with Chuumon before they can make specific actions and play lines possible. And for that same style of reasoning, I'm also going to be running 3 copies of Chikurimon as another black floodgate for us to run, trying to, again, stop and limit some of the opponent's actions, and this time on Chikurimon, it's stopping the opponent from reducing the play cost of their cards. This doesn't really affect us that much because we're going to be gaining memory back rather than reducing the cost of our cards, but it does stop Digi-Cross plays, and it does also stop Death X plays. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Hagurumon. So we don't necessarily want to Digivolve it in raising into Hagurumon because then we won't get its on playability off, and its on playability just helps with the deck's overall consistency and cycling, just because we get to discard 1 card from our hand with Machine or Cyborg in its traits to be able to draw 2 cards, again helping try to set up our trash to a state where we want it and need it to be for our cards to be as effective as possible, while helping with the overall consistency, replacing itself and the card we discarded from our hand with cards from our deck. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Tankmon. So Tankmon is in here just because he's a really good stepping stool to get into our level 5s as quickly and efficiently as we possibly can, evoing for 1. If we need to aggro with him, then having 6000 DP isn't that bad of a stat line to be working with, and on top of that, he's fitting on brand with the deck, being a cyborg for us to try to take advantage of and interact with those types of synergies. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Guardromon. So this is the EX1 version of Guardromon, and he's just going to be in the deck for some early game blocking, so that way we could try to stave off some of the potential aggro that the opponent might be presenting us with, on top of the fact that his inheritable ability is basically just Hagurumon, except on a when attacking trigger for our higher stages to try to make the deck a little bit more consistent. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Megadramon. So this is the EX1 version of Megadramon, and this is a pretty good card just because if we don't have any ways to be able to get a level 5 out if we really need one, then we could just hard play him to delete 2 of the opponent's low level Digimon out, which is pretty decent already. Ideally, we're not going to try to do that, but that playline is available to us if we need to. What we're really trying to use the card for is his inheritable ability for our level 6s, just because his inheritable ability is going to be giving our level 6s security attack +1, so that way they could try to be as threatening to the opponent's security as they possibly can, dealing some extra damage, putting more pressure onto the opponent. Next, I'm going to be running 1 copy of MetalGreymon. So this is the EX1 version of MetalGreymon, and this isn't a bad card to want to Digivolve up into, just because, again, it could offer us some low-level control, but ideally, we're just going to be using him as a nice inheritable, just because he's going to be adding piercing to our higher stage Digimon, so that way, when they attack, they're still going to be dealing damage, even if the opponent blocks, and we're able to delete that blocker. Next, I'm going to be running one copy of Volcanomon. So this is the starter deck version of Volcanomon, and he is a blocker natively if we need to Digivolve up into. His 9000 DP actually makes him a pretty decent blocker, and he has no downside to actually wanting to attack outside of his high evolution cost. But similarly to why we're going to be running Megadramon, we're going to be running Volcanomon mostly for his inheritable ability to add Security Tech +1 to our higher stage Digimon, again, so that way they could try to deal as much damage as they possibly can, being a very big threat for the opponent to try to have to deal with. Next, I'm going to be playing two copies of Andromon. So this is the EX1 version of Andromon, and he's a pretty decent card to use as a good stepping stone, just because he has a Wind Digivolving ability that's trying to help with the deck's overall consistency by digging out our level 6s and then trashing the rest of the cards, so that way we can try to use Machinedramon as best as we possibly can. Then his inheritable ability is pretty good for the deck by giving our level 6s the blocker ability, so that way we could be offensive or defensive depending on how the stack is looking. Next, I'm going to be running two copies of MetalTyrannomon. So this is the EX1 version of MetalTyrannomon, and he has that same Wind Digivolving ability that we just saw with our Andromon to try to help with the deck's overall consistency, on top of the fact that his inheritable ability for us to use is adding Reboot, so that way we could pair that up with Blocker to be able to have an offensively defensive Digimon. Next, I'm going to be running one copy of MetalMamemon. So MetalMamemon, again, has that same When Digivolving ability that we just saw with Andromon and MetalTyrannomon. So again, just more consistency is a good thing. On top of it, his inheritable ability is just adding some extra control when we're going to be swinging with our higher level Digimon. Next, I'm going to be running two copies of Cyberdramon. So this is the EX3 version of Cyberdramon, and he's going to be the main inheritable that we're going to want to use to try to increase the overall DP of our Digimon, just because he states that during all turns, while we have a suspended tamer in play, which it isn't hard to get our tamer in a suspended state in this deck, then this Digimon gets plus 2000 DP, so it's just, again, making our Digimon even harder for the opponents to deal with. Next, I'm going to be running two copies of Megadramon. So this is the starter deck version of Megadramon, and it basically has the same inheritable as what we just saw with our Andromon to be able to add Blocker to our higher level Digimon. Next, I'm going to be running two copies of MetalGreymon. So this is the BT8 version of MetalGreymon, and he's a pretty decent card to use whether we're Digivolving up into him for some added control, just because D-Digivolve 1 is already pretty annoying and can set the opponent back. On top of being able to delete one of the opponent's low-level Digimon is still just pretty good at being able to pop pesky floodgates that may or may not be on the field. Then, on top of that, his inheritable ability, again, is what we're really trying to go after with utilizing this card, just because he allows our Digimon to be able to attack into the opponent's Digimon for alternative ways of control, and we can pair this up with various other abilities like Piercing to be able to then deal damage by deleting the opponent's Digimon that we're attacking into, whether suspended or unsuspended. And then the last level 5 of the deck is going to be one copy of Megadramon. So this is the BT9 version of Megadramon, and this is in the deck for some added tamer hate. Next, on to the Megas, I'm going to be running 4 copies of the brand new Chaosdramon. So this brand new version of Chaosdramon can Digivolve for 1 on top of a Machinedramon if we really need to, or we could just Digivolve him normally on top of a red or black level 5 for 4, adding alternative ways to be able to play this card. Then, what's adding extra playability to the card is the fact that he has an on-play or when Digivolving ability, so if we really need to hard play him, we can, but most of the time, ideally, we want to Digivolve up into him to get his effect off, where we get to place up to 3 red or black level 5 cyborgs in their traits of different varieties from our hand or trash underneath this Digimon to the bottom of his Digivolution source, and then we get a D-Digivolve 1 on one of the opponent's Digimon for each of the cards placed by this effect. So again, just more added control, and the fact that we get to add inheritables underneath means that we get to pick and choose what abilities we're trying to add to him that we have available. Then his All Turns ability is taking a page from the EX1 version of Machinedramon, where when this Digimon would be deleted, returned to the hand or deck, we get to trash 2 level 5s from his Digivolution source to prevent him from leaving play, making him a very sticky body against certain decks. And then the last mega of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Machinedramon. So Machinedramon is a card we usually just want to try to hard play, so his on-play ability that we're trying to gain out of this card states that we get to place up to 5 red or black level 5 cyborg traded Digimon that are all different from our hand or trash in this Digimon's Digivolution source, and then for each Digimon we placed underneath him, we get to gain 1 memory. So he initially costs 12, so we could gain 5 memory back, making him a level 6 that hard plays for 7, which isn't that bad. Then his Altern's ability states that his DP can't be reduced, so he's really good against yellow decks or decks that are splashing yellow, just because it makes their primary form of removal completely useless. Then on top of that, as we just saw with Chaosdramon, he has another Altern's ability that's making him very sticky, where when this Digimon would be deleted, we get to trash 2 level 5 Digimon from his Digivolution source to be able to prevent him from being deleted. So it is slightly different in terms of the protections that he's offering compared to Chaosdramon, but again, he at least has some protection that's making him really annoying for the opponent to deal with depending on the matchup. And then as far as tamers go, I'm only going to be running 4 copies of Kazu. So Kazu is a pretty synergistic tamer to run with cyborgs and machines, just because at the start of our main, we get to gain 1 memory as long as we have a Digimon with cyborg or machine in its traits in play, so he's just helping with our memory generation, and this does stack per Kazu, so the more Kazus we have, the more memory we're going to be gaining. Then on top of that, he has an all turns ability, which is pretty useful for the deck, where when one of our Digimon with machine or cyborg in its traits becomes suspended, so whether we're blocking or attacking, it doesn't necessarily matter, we then get to suspend this tamer to cycle a card, so we get to draw 1 card and then trash 1 from our hand, not only trying to make the deck more consistent, but fill up our trash with the inheritables that we want, so that way we could use our level 6s as effectively as we possibly can, along with some of our various other abilities, just because we do have a card that's asking for our tamer to be suspended to be able to gain the full benefits. And then lastly, onto the options, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon. So this is a fantastic card to use in combination with our Machinedramon to be able to make our Machinedramon even more playable than he's ever been before. So for the low cost of 0, we get to discard 1 card with machine or cyborg in its traits from our hand. Ideally, it's going to be a level 5, so we could then tuck it underneath our level 6. And then all of our level 6 Digimon with machine or cyborg in its traits gains the rush ability and the on-play ability of Blitz for the turn, so that way it allows us to be able to use this card, have Machinedramon have an inheritable we could already pull from our trash, and then he's going to have Rush and Blitz to be able to then use the card, so that way we don't always pass the turn when we're hard playing this card. We could do the same thing with Chaosdramon, but Chaosdramon doesn't gain us any memory back, so there's less of a reason to do so, but that playline is still available to us. Then its security ability is basically acting as the big hard removal tech, where we get to discard a Digimon card with cyborg or machines in its traits from our hand to be able to delete one of the Digimons whose play cost is equal to or less than the Digimon we just discarded. So it's just a decent security threat that the opponent is also going to have to deal with. And then the last card of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Black Memory Boost. So Black Memory Boost is in the deck just to help with its overall consistency, so that way we could try to make sure that we could find the parts and pieces that we need. So just looking at the top 4 and adding a Black Digimon from among them into our hand is already pretty good, but because it is a memory boost, it also goes into the battle area, so we could use its secondary main ability of Delay to be able to gain 2 memory to make it more powerful turns later on. And then as far as some general play lines go, for the most part, we're just going to try to raise our floodgates and sit on our floodgates, which is why Pagumon's on delete ability is actually pretty good, because we want the opponent to try to target our floodgate and take pressure off of some other things, while also being able to trigger Pagumon's ability alternatively to be able to add extra consistency into the deck. Then Hagurumon is the card we're usually going to be hard playing to try to cycle through our deck. Usually we want to try to discard our level 5s, so that way we could try to have our level 5s in our trash instead of using them from our hand for our level 6's abilities. Then we usually want to go from any of our level 3s. Usually you're going to want to try to not digivolve on top of your floodgates unless you have extra ones on the field, and you're just going to use Tankmon for some fast climbing and Guardromon for his inheritable ability on top of him being a blocker. Then we just have a slew of different level 5s that we have access to, so you just want to try to get up into some of them for some extra consistency, namely the EX1 versions of the cards. So that's going to be MetalTyrannomon, Andromon, and Mamemon to try to help dig out your level 6 when you don't have one. Or if you wanted to, you could just try to use Megadramon, MetalGreymon, Megadramon, and Volcanomon to just sit on the field and still do something and be disruptive towards the opponent while we're waiting for our level 6s to come. And you're just going to want to try to fill up your trash with as many level 5s as you possibly can, so that way we can utilize our level 6s as easily as we possibly can, because they both want to shove cards underneath to be able to increase their inheritable sources, and that way they could be super sticky and annoying for the opponents to deal with. So Machinedramon, we usually want to try to hard play and shove 5 underneath, and we could use Heavy Machine Digimon in advance to be able to help set up our Machinedramon by not only just putting a Digimon in our trash to use for Machinedramon, but the fact that we could give him Rush and Blitz just means that he's going to be more usable of a card, so we could actually attack with him right away the turn that we're hard playing him. We could do the same thing with Chaosdramon, but Chaosdramon's the card we usually want to Digivolve into on our level 5s, so that way, again, we could shove cards underneath and be disruptive towards the opponent, or at least if we really need to / want to, we could even Digivolve Chaosdramon on top of a Machinedramon for a discount and still be pretty disruptive towards the opponent while sitting on a very hard Digimon for the opponent to deal with, again, depending on the matchup. Kazu is just going to help us gain some passive memory, and the fact that Kazu interacts with Cyberdramon is actually pretty good, making Kazu the desired tamer just because he's going to be gaining us some extra memory, cycling through our deck, and he has ways to suspend himself during not only our turn when we're attacking with our Digimon, but during the opponent's turn if we decide to use any blocker type of abilities, just because the vast majority, if not every single card in the deck as far as our higher stages, are going to be cyborgs and machines. And then we do have various other tech and tools that we could think about incorporating into the deck to really customize the deck and make it your own, and this deck has a lot of different customization options just because of all of the different sub-packages that we could run and include into the deck, just because of how flexible our tech and tools can be. So we could think about splashing in a little bit of a blue package, so we could use the Jamming Vmon with the Demi Vmon Egg to act as a really good rookie draw engine for the deck, on top of the fact that we do have Kyoshiro for some added card draw when we get into our higher stage Digimon, and we even have Kaisernail to synergize with our Chaosdramon to put him on top of a Machinedramon. Then Kaisernail will pull out that Machinedramon, and then we get his on-play ability again. So it's just an easy way to be able to have some alternative lines of play to make some very powerful plays possible. Then we do have a purple package that we could lean into just because purple has lots of draw and discard in it already. So we could use something like the Eismon package just to be able to draw lots of cards and discard lots of cards, filtering through our deck. And we even have Sister Mont Blanc to act as another good card to help facilitate that style of play. And we even have some decent red cards that we could think about leaning into if we want a red low end. So we do have the Guilmons that we could use in combination with the Draw Gigimon. So that way we have, similarly to the Jamming Vmon, ways to be able to draw alternatively in other colors on our rookies. And the Guilmons are actually pretty good just because the Promo Guilmon gives us an extra card draw, and the EX3 Guilmon can help set up our trash if no Digimon is going to be deleted. Then on top of that, since we're already in red, we do have Solarmon, which is the red version of Chikurimon. That's also fitting on theme with the deck because he's also part machine, and we do just have some decent red tamers that we could lean into, like Hero and Tai, just to use for memory fixing tamers on top of them being a red source. And we do have a slew of different red options that we could think about using, either to help with the consistency with just some extra card draw, or be able to delete the opponent's Digimon with some hard removal. And then as far as some other really good cards to think about using in the deck, we could use Mechanorimon as that early game blocker just because it's an easy card to want to hard play, and we could Digivolve on top of it if we need to. Then we do just have some other red and black cyborg level 5s that we could think about using. So we do have the other MetalGreymons, we do have the War Growlmons, we do have more Megidramons and Gigadramons, all doing various different things. So depending on what you're looking for, you can really customize your level 5 package. And then we do have a couple of different level 7s that we could think about utilizing depending on what you want to gain out of that slot, if you want to even run one at all. So we do have the ever infamous Death Xmon as just an easy card to include in virtually almost any deck, on top of the fact that we do have the ones that are going to be synergizing and on color with red and black, so you could run Omnimon Alter S, or you could run something like Ragnalordmon, just because Ragnalordmon finishes, especially with large stacks, is a very powerful thing that the opponent's going to have to deal with, especially since our Digimon are really sticky already, so the chances of them staying around is actually pretty high. Then on top of that, we do have a slew of other options that fit on brand with the deck. So we have Ultimate Connection, that's basically acting like the Hammer Spark of the deck, and we do have Hyper Infinity Cannon for some extra removal. Then we do have some other really good black tamers that we could think about using in the form of Izzy and Tai as two of the easier ones to help act as good memory fixers. On top of the fact that we do have alternative tamers to try to help with the deck's overall consistency, like Analog Youth and Izzy and Joe. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.